Good morning and welcome to an exciting week to talk business. My name is Vladimir Kim and it's Business 360 on Spectrum TV. In today's Business 360, we'll look at economic outlook for the week. We'll get to talk about the impact of these outlooks from Africa, Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world. This week is set to be extremely busy with a number of key events scheduled. Investors will closely follow the U.S. labor report, as well as the monetary policy decisions of the Federal Reserve, and Apple, the ISM services and manufacturing PMI, job openings, and external trade data in the US will be in focus. Also, central banks in Australia, Switzerland, South Korea, Indonesia, and the Netherlands. Manufacturing PMIs are expected from China, India, Canada, Italy, South Korea, and Russia, as well as economic data from African countries. Let's also have a look at some level of entertainment business, beginning with Adidas. Adidas is being sued by investors who claim the fame knew about Kanye West's measures to minimize their exposure. The sportswear giant ended its collaboration with a designer and rapper who is known as Ye last year following anti-Semitic comments. West is not a party to the lawsuit. The rapper designed a line of shoes with the Yeezy brand for Adidas. Since then, Adidas admitted that it could lose up to 700 million euros after being left with hundreds of millions of euros worth of unsold Yeezy products. Well, it's quite concerning from the company regarding investors' lawsuits amid the debacle with Kanye West. Let's look at a point of view from Africa. Investment in low and middle income countries resumed, according to the World Bank's most recent data projection on investment. World Bank data shows a 23% increase in private participation in infrastructure PPI investment in low and middle income countries in 2022, reaching $91.7 billion. However, investment remained unevenly distributed, with sub-Saharan Africa recovery, with transportation accounting for nearly 68% of PPI spending in 2022 and renewable energy projects on the rise. It would be a good time to look at Nigerian business outlook and the very concerns from CBN. Nigerians reduced bank deposits by 210 billion naira after CBN Naira redesign policy. The deposits in commercial banks operating in Nigeria dropped in the first quarter of 2023, according to data from the 210 billion naira, or 1.04% during the period of review. Report shows that the deposits depreciated to 19.91 trillion naira at the end of March from 20.12 trillion naira in January. Deposits are funds readily available for customer withdrawal. According to reports, a decline in deposit reduces liquidity available for commercial banks to lend to their retail or corporate customers. This affects a deposit money bank's revenue generated from loan advancements or credits, which is another source of income for financial institutions. Looking at the financial year, the first 3 months of the year, Dangote Cement PLC, Bois Cement PLC, and Lafarge Cement PLC, the three cement producers listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX, collectively generated 604.89 billion naira in revenue in the first quarter of 2023. The figure was a marginal increase of 0.68% over the 600.7 billion naira reported by the companies in Nigeria by posting 406.72 billion naira as revenue in the first quarter of 2023 due to taxes and high production costs. Bois Cement reported the second highest revenue among Nigerian cement makers in the first quarter of the year, with 106.35 billion naira, up from 96.98 billion naira posted in the same period last year. Meanwhile, Lafarge Cement recorded sales of 91.82 billion naira. Looking at ideals within the Nigerian community and businesses, stakeholders operating in the nation's maritime sector have rejected an overweight cargo surcharge nearly introduced by a shipping firm CMA-CGM. The $250 surcharge, an equivalent of 115,175 naira, coming from Asia and India East Coast to Nigeria, with effect from April 28, 2023. The French ocean carrier said Nigerian importers would pay an overweight surcharge of $250 per TEU on dry containers with a container gross weight equal to or more than One ports. That's the outlook from a Nigerian point of view. It would be a good time to move to global economy to see the indices around the world, data expected to be out, and data already released. Let's look at data to be released today, Monday, May 1st, 2023, the economic calendar. Manufacturing PMI for April. The standing indicates private sector performances, the manufacturing sector in India. The actual data came out at 57.2 points, previously at 56.4, indicating a slight improvement, but the forecast had shown a decline to 55, but the outcome is better than the forecast. Previously it stood at 33.9, and the forecast had indicated a decline of 32 index level, but has shown improvement in consumer confidence in the private sector in Japan. Let's look at data to be released in the afternoon, around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Around 3 previously stood at 46.3 point level. The forecast is expected for the index level to get to 46.5, but we'll get to wait to see what the outcome would be around 3 p.m. in the calendar point view. But the interesting feature from the US is that the manufacturing sector in the country gets to affect the market and the market outlook. We move to China now. They fell to a 4-month low of 49.2 in April from 51.9 in March, missing market estimates of 51.4 in China. The latest prints pointed to the first contraction in factory activity since December amid weak global. It would be a good time to look at the charts indicating China's NBS manufacturing PMI. The charts this morning. China's NBS manufacturing PMI has been indicative of factory activities and manufacturing activities in China. What the standings are, as of July 2022, it went up to 49 points, but even further to 50.1 points, before dropping slowly to 49.2 points as of October 2022. It further went downward to 47 points, but by January 2023, the manufacturing PMI in China went higher, indicating a slight slowdown in economic activities in China. Let's come to African economy. We'll be looking at the business hub in East Africa, Kenya. The annual inflation rate in Kenya dropped to a 10-month low of 7.9% in April 2023, from 9.2% in the prior month and below market estimates of 9%. The slowdown was mainly attributed to some items such as spinach and onions decline. At the same time, transportation prices eased 9.8% against 12.9% amid stable gasoline prices. On a monthly basis, consumer prices increased by 0.5% in April after a 0.8% rise in the prior month. It would make sense to look at the details from the charts of the currency, mostly weakness of that currency in Kenya. As of July 2022, inflation in Kenya stood at 8.3%. It went further upward to 9.2 and 9.6%, the 2022 high, but began to slow down to 9.5% and 9.1%. As of January 2023, inflation had dropped to 9% before going slightly higher to 9.2% and further dropping to 7.9% in April, indicating better economy. Could a BRICS common currency work? That's the question about a group of nations called the BRICS. The BRICS nations have been discussing the idea of creating a new currency to facilitate overseas. Some of the BRIC countries have already ditched the dollar and are now trading in their local currency. Brazil and China signed an agreement last month to abandon the dollar as an intermediary and settle bilateral. Thus, a BRICS currency for international trade makes sense comparatively to the US dollar. Let's find out more from Patrick Bowles regarding this.
It was announced that China and Brazil had signed an agreement on trade in mutual currencies, abandoning the use of the US dollar as an yuan for Brazilian real and vice versa, instead of using the US dollar for settlements. Brazil's new President Lula, on his first state visit to China, called for the countries of the BRICS group of nations, which is made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to come up with their own alternative currency for use in trade. Every night I ask myself why all countries have Brazilian and Chinese dignitaries present at the event. Who was it that decided that the dollar was the currency after the disappearance of the gold standard? The strength of the US dollar over the last year has inspired a lot of hopeful thinking in emerging markets about reducing dependence on the US currency, and economic sense are tied to those.
What gets to happen? The outlines from the energy as well as the metal market, beginning with oil. Oil eases on weak Chinese data towards $76 per barrel today, extending a two-week decline as surprisingly weak Chinese data raised demand concerns in the world's top contraction since December amid weak global demand. The country's services activity growth also slowed in April, through remaining expansionary for the fourth consecutive month. Let's move to the market to see what the data regarding these commodities, the energy market, is declined. Huge decline this morning. Well, the volatility is slightly low, but crude oil price this morning, US crude, $75 per barrel, downward by 1.724 points, a negative 2.23% decline. For Brent, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, the current price slightly downward this morning, heating oil slightly downward and coal slightly downward. Let's look at the metal market, what the outlines is for gold, silver, copper, and the rest of it. Gold price also downward this morning amid concerns from China as the economic state, manufacturing state in China slows down. For gold price, it's $1,978 per ounce, dropping by 11.13 points, a negative 0.56% decline. For silver, it's a little here, little there, not gaining much, but $25 per ounce. Copper is dropping slightly. Steel is dropping by 55 points. In the early morning market, current price for steel, the price of soybeans, wheat, and the rest. Soybeans is gaining slightly, just 2 points this morning, a 0.14% appreciation. Current price $1,446 per bushel. For wheat, is 6 and dropping even further from the 3,500 point mark, dropping by 117 points, a negative 3.39% drop. Palm oil price is 3,338 Malaysian ringgit per ton. Market is, as we drop downward to see what the perspective of this market is, we've looked at investors doing what they have done in the market this morning and the opportunities in it amid the concerns going on based on inflation and tightening financial conditions and how it could dampen global growth and hot energy market. Let's move to the forex market to see what the ideals in the forex market is this morning. The forex market, the euro against the US dollar, before we get to explain the impact of New Zealand. The euro against the US dollar. The euro against the US dollar this morning, current price is 1.09 US dollar equaling 1 euro, dropping by 0.0125 US dollar equaling 1 pound. The Aussie is gaining against the US dollar while the US dollar is stronger against the euro and the pound. The Aussie is gaining just slightly against the US dollar. Let's see the picture of the Naira in the morning market. Perspective of the Naira in the morning market. The Naira, for the euro against the Naira, the euro is dropping as at the close of last week's market, Friday's closure of the market. It closed at a negative 2.02 points, a negative 0.4 percentage decline. Similar story for pound. The pound had dropped against the naira, the majors. In the black market, we've seen 740 naira equaling $1 at the buying rate and selling rate 737 naira to $1. For pounds to naira, it's 930 naira equaling £1 and 915 naira equaling £1 at the selling rate. For euro to naira, 809 naira to adding the New Zealand dollar. Still looking at foreign exchange market. The New Zealand dollar is slightly to $0.617 on Monday. Before we get to talk about the US futures, let's look at the New Zealand dollar. On Monday, from near 2-week high of $0.618 hits in the price season as holidays in most of Asia made for thin trading. Weighing on risk sentiment was unexpectedly contracted to extend a rate pause on Tuesday as inflation eased further. At home, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand has lifted the cash rate by a total of 500 basis points since October 2021 to 5.25%, and it is still expected to deliver 25 basis points rate hike this month. Looking at July before pausing or even cutting borrowing costs at the end of the year for the US Federal Reserve's interest rate decision later this week. We've looked at the outlines in the market and we'll be looking at the state of things regarding the US futures, as US future flat at first trading day of May. The stock market. US stock futures were little changed today at three major indices and indexes and were flat to slightly negative. For the month of April, the Dow gained 2.46%, the S&P 500 climbed 1.46%, and the Nasdaq Composite added 0 in the stock market this morning, the US 30. The morning market has indicated that Apple, based on the closure of last week's market, current price at 169 index level, and it's gained 1.27 points. For Microsoft, it's the same, slowdown share level, gaining just slightly 0.04, and Visa 232.73 share level, gaining 3.72 points, a 1.62 percentage increase. Let's look at the African stock market and the outline in this one. The African stocks gaining 168 basis points, while the morning market is 0.32 percentage appreciation. While the South African stock is also gaining. Most of the African stocks are doing quite well in the morning market, exception of Nairobi 20 and Nairobi All-Share dropping slightly in the morning market. This is where we draw the curtain.